now. Okay,
Lovely.
right. Hi, Laura and Chantel. Thank you ever so much for joining us to talk about the ADHD medication issues that are going on. And I'm literally just going to hand over to you and let you introduce yourselves for anyone that doesn't know you already.
Lovely. Thanks, Jill.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining, and Jill, thanks for putting this on again for us, giving us a platform to be able to get some messaging out to parents and carers. For those that I don't know, I'm Chantel Homan and I am the head of service for Southampton CAMHS, which obviously includes our ADHD provision. I'll just hand over to Laura to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Laura Nisbet. I'm the lead nurse for ADHD at Southampton CAMHS.
So the reason why we linked with Jill and Angie and asked for this to kind of be put on today really is that we have recently received some notification that's come out to all provider trusts and pharmacies regarding some global shortages of medication that are connected. So there will be some written comms that comes out later today. So we're doing this in parallel really with written comms and then some verbal bits, because we realise this may well kind of generate some questions from families, and we want to be able to answer them as openly and honestly as possible. But I guess bearing in mind that this is quite new to us and it's a very unfolding situation, so at this moment in time we may not have all the answers, but just by knowing the questions helps us to know what comms we need to be targeting in future really around this. So I'm just going to hand over to Laura now, who's just going to take you through a bit more detail what I've just said, what this actually means, and then just open the floor to any questions. Okay. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you. So as Chantel said, we've recently been told by NHS England that there's a shortage of ADHD medication. For some young people, there has been 1 or 2 medications on odd doses that we've not been able to get over the past 6 months or so. But what's happened now is that a large proportion of ADHD medication is becoming unavailable. So it's about 80% of the medications that we use. And at the moment, it's mainly affecting Elvans, atomoxetine, guanfacine, and Equism in all doses, and some small doses of Concerta and Natiride and other medications. So it's quite a large percentage of what we do prescribe. There are still other ADHD medications available. So what we've tried to do at the moment is, you might have received a questionnaire from ourselves asking us just to let us know what medication you're on, or your child's on, what dose they've got and how much you've got left. And that's to try and help us just look at who we need to prioritise seeing first, but also then able to let you know if you're on a medication that's not in the shortage at the moment, that you don't need to panic right now, and just to continue with your prescriptions as normal. And then we can think about sort of getting in touch and supporting you if that then becomes an issue later on. We do think that because of the medications that are left, we might see some of them become into the shortage over the next little while if the supplies don't come back quick enough. What we've been told at the moment is that hopefully by the end of the year, the stock should be back in place, but that's sort of uncertain. And we're just going to have to take that sort of week by week as we get updates in terms of medication supplies, and then we can share that with families. We have got letters coming out to you all, which will give some additional support and explain where we're at. As Chantel said, the questionnaires come out, and if you have got concerns and you aren't able to get any medication, I would try and ring round some different pharmacies if you can, because different pharmacies get stock from different places. So some do still have some small supplies, so it's worth giving them a ring. And if you are struggling, then let us know, and then we'll come back to you as soon as we can. We have got processes in place and clinic to support you with that, but we are expecting that to get a lot of those calls, so we will come back to you as soon as we can within that, but it might not be sort of straight away on that day, depending on the volume that's coming in.
Thanks, Laura. I think the other bit maybe just to also kind of apologise in advance for some families is that the directive also, or the comms that we had from NHS England also directs services to not start any new initiations of medication. that is because what we can't then guarantee is that we can titrate to a safe and effective dose, because first of all, well, primarily we can't really guarantee the ongoing medication stocks. And of course, when we start to initiate any medication for a child or young person, we do it with quite a high level of oversight, and with the knowledge that sometimes the medication that we start at first may not be the best medication. And so there may be a requirement to switch on to others that might suit a child more. And our ability to do that right now is not there. So we're not able to safely and effectively initiate medications, even if we were to go against the request from NHS England and to continue to initiate. What that means, and I really do apologise for this, is that some families who had their appointments with us, we have needed to cancel those appointments, and we'll be unable to look to reinstate those appointments into the new year, and only until we receive the kind of go ahead from NHS England that we can start with our initiations again. So I am really sorry for that. We do know how long our families wait. And we wish this was something within our control, but unfortunately it's not. So that's probably about as much as we know at this stage. We will always be open and honest and share everything that we do know with you. Are there any questions from families, parents and carers on the call? Jill, you're straight in there, I saw. I can't hear you, Jill. I don't know if it's just me. No, sorry, I can see your mouse moving.
Can you hear me, Chantal?
I can hear you, Angie, yeah.
Okay, I can't hear you either, Jill. Gosh, the ideal place. Sorry. I have a quick question while Jill's sorting that out.
Yeah, go on.
I've received a leaflet from my GP about the shortage. It's a NHS leaflet that's come through by text a few days ago. And it says that one of the medications, so guanfenicin, if you stop taking it, can cause a rapid rise in blood pressure.
Yeah.
What should I do about that if we can't get it?
So what we've tried to do is identify the young people who are on guanfacine. We know that there's difficulties stopping guanfacine very quickly.
Right.
And there
just
is
to say my young person's an adult, sorry, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine, but you're right to raise it, Angie. Thank you.
The other thing with guanfacine is normally by the time we get to guanfacine, we've tried other medications. So we also know that it's really important that we keep the young person on that medication. But there aren't alternatives to swap over like we can do with some of the methylphenidate. So what we have done within clinic is, while there's still a short supply, is give additional 2-3 months worth of supply to those young people to try and tide you over in this sort of time, really, until we can sort of work out what's happening. If we get to a point where the supply hasn't come back in and we're aware it's not coming back in, then we will be contacting those young people, Angie, to try and discontinue that safely.
So if I go to our prescriber and ask them for that 2 to 3 month supply of it, the same.
You can try. That's certainly something we've had agreed within service.
Okay, because we were
other services.
Yeah, we were put out to a private on the NHS sort of thing. So we're under the NHS, but we're with a private provider. So I think I might go to her then and ask her to give us a longer supply for it, and so that we can have some, if it works that way. If not, we'll discuss it. I just wanted to raise it and just to say,
I think you can try.
Yeah. And yes, I've already had a leaflet from the GP, so they were quite on it as well.
But otherwise, I think it needs to be a discussion with them in terms of, okay, well, how do I then start to discontinue off this medication safely? Because that will need monitoring and physical health monitoring over a period of time. But is that okay?
That's lovely. No, that's great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
My young person also takes guanfacine, but I'm under Eastleigh CAMHS, and I've had no communication at all from anyone to even tell me there's a shortage. I just happened upon it. So I'm a bit concerned because I got a prescription a couple of weeks ago, but they only did when there was stock, but they only did the 28 days as usual. And now I'm struggling to get anywhere. I've been ringing around pharmacies and there's nothing, and I've had no communication from any source at all.
Okay, I'm really sorry for your experience, Erin, because it's really challenging at the moment. Laura and I can't really speak on behalf of Eastleigh CAMHS. It's not a service that we deliver, I'm afraid. So I don't fully know what their kind of policies and processes are in this. What I would say is that we've been working really closely with our colleagues in Hampshire CAMHS, because we all got the alert at the same time and have had to respond really quickly. It was an alert that truly came out of the blue and with immediate effect. So I do know that our colleagues in Hampshire CAMHS have been working to get some comms agreed in the same way that we've been working to get some comms agreed to get something out to families. The media and GPs have obviously got hold of this story quite rightly and are publicising it. So we know that a lot of families are becoming aware sort of before we've had a chance to get our formal comms in place with that. What Eastleigh CAMHS and Hampshire CAMHS are able to do in terms of their policies and processes regarding guanfacine will be different to Solent. So I can't sort of speak fully on that, and I'm really sorry for that, Erin, because I know that leaves you in a position. But I would really urge you to kind of just get in contact with your prescriber to just say your young person is prescribed guanfacine. You're aware of the medication shortages and what does this mean for you and your child, really, and to go back to them.
Okay, shall do.
Is that all right?
Right, I think you can hear me now. Can you hear me?
We can,
Jill. Yeah. Good, phew. So there's a couple of hands up. I'll go to them and then I've got some questions as well. So Adam, I think your hand was up first.
Yeah. Thanks for doing this. First of all, I think it's very useful. We are under Southampton CAMHS. Well, my son is anyway. He's on Equisim, and he saw his practitioner yesterday, who actually just upped his dosage. He was on 20, he's now been recommended to go to 30. What are the chances of us being able to actually affect that? He's got about a fortnight left of what he's currently on, so we were about to renew, but knew that we were seeing him. So we're now in a position that we're 2 weeks out from, the end of his meds, and we haven't had any comms. We haven't had any comms at all. My wife tripped over it because she spotted it on Relines.
Yeah, the comms, so I'll hand over to Laura for the Equisim, but just to let you know, the comms will kind of be coming out today, really. We've needed to work with our comms department in Solent and also our participation team within Solent to make sure that what we were writing was accurate, but also accessible, and went through our participation group. So it's taken about a week for us to get through that process, but we finally got the sign off on them literally this morning, so we'll be able to start getting those out. So yeah, I do apologize for the delay. It's a bit like,
I'll be honest, I probably disbelieved our postman rather than you guys. So
it's a bit like it's all happened so quickly. We've got different levels of bits kind of coming in, and some of it's a little bit back to front at the moment. I know, but I'll hand over to Laura for the Equisim response.
Okay, so what I would say in the first instance is I would try and fulfill that prescription if you can. There are still some pharmacies that do have some stock. So although the notifications come out saying that it's out of stock, we're not quite sort of completely out of stock. So I would try and get hold of that if you can. The other thing is that your son should then be identified within our clinic as someone who's on Equisim, and we will be making contact with you to then think about if that stock does completely go out, so what we can do to swap over. As I said, you hopefully have received the questionnaire that came round last week, and if that's sort of come back, then he'll already have been sort of identified as someone that we need to get in touch with.
But I wasn't joking about the postal service. We're complaining to the post at the minute. We get once a week, if that.
Oh, bless you. So this would have come out electronically, either to yourself or to your wife's phone, to the mobile. So possibly you might have got a link that way, but don't worry if you haven't, because it will be coming back out, because we haven't quite captured everybody. So there'll be an opportunity, but I would try and fulfill the prescription.
Will do.
Like I say, you might need to ring around a few pharmacies, and if you do have any problems, come back to us. We have got some options that we can swap with the Equism at the moment.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great, thank you. Emma, I've got your hand up.
Hi, I'm not sure if it's something you guys will be able to answer today. I've had a question from a teacher to say that their protocol is not to have children in that are unmedicated. What's going to happen with that? Is it something they got to follow through with?
You're right, Emma. That is one that probably we're not going to be able to answer today. So we've got some. So within the comms, we've got some comms that are going to be going out to schools that will be targeted to SENCOs and head teachers. And we've been in touch with our colleague in the local authority, who is the head of SCND, and we will be doing a similar Q&A like this, but making it available for schools to put in some questions and answers to this. We don't have a kind of obviously particular influence or control over individual schools' policies, but I would really encourage you, as I've no doubt that you will be doing anyway, to get in touch with your SENCO kind of at the earliest opportunity to highlight that actually this is a national issue. It's not one that we have control of. You are obviously not readily taking your child off of medication, and maybe highlighting how long this could potentially go on for. So in the possibility that we get to a place where your child isn't able to have any ongoing medication, and I say that in terms of possibility because we don't know when when medication stocks are going to truly run out, if they run out before Christmas, and if there is no safe alternative. So it's all a bit of a, if you end up in a position where you have no medication, then start kind of thinking with the school now about what that looks like, what that means for you, what that means for your child, what that means for the school, and getting those conversations going early. As I say, we will be following this up with comms to schools as well, and kind of open to Q&As from them. But I'm not able to obviously kind of influence the decision making within the schools, Emma, as you know anyway.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, one of my questions that we've had from some families is about schools as well, and how they are going to react to sort of children being on medication. We're already hearing of some schools pushing back, like Emma said, on this, and some are really worried about things like mock exams that are happening coming up at this time of year, for some of the older young ones, and how we talk to our children about this. So any advice, I guess we'll take any concerns we get about schools. If our families feed them back to us, we will feed that back to the local authority and the SEN team, and we'll try and have those conversations with them as well. And I'm glad that you're going to sort of do some work with schools. Is there any advice about how we, talk to our young people about the fact there's going to be a medication shortage? Because for some of them, that's going to be quite scary, for those impulsive behaviours and those kind of low moods that some of them might have. Just any advice around that would be great.
Yeah, so if I just talk a little bit about the school bits, and then I'll probably hand over to Laura to talk about what we would do when young people have planned medication breaks anyway, and some of the information there is around that, because that's probably quite similar. But I guess the first thing that I would say to that is the absolute known impact of this so far at this moment in time is in our ability to initiate medication, so to provide medication for young people not currently on it. We actually don't know, is the honest answer, about what impact there will be in terms of ongoing medication flows for young people currently within treatment, if you like. So whilst we are taking the stance of kind of trying to plan for everything and be really open and honest with families, it's not from a place of because we're kind of catastrophizing and thinking that everyone's going to end up with medication. So that's the first thing to really say. So the conversations with schools absolutely need to kind of go alongside the comms that they will be receiving from us around this, and needs to go along the lines of there is a possibility that my child will not be able to continue with their medication this side of Christmas, really. And if that should happen, what should we be putting into place in school to help them to continue to attend and to succeed, really? That will obviously come down to a conversation between school and home in that place, really, about what are the different provisions within the school, what the resources, and what are some of the things that they have worked with before in that place. I think that's probably the main bit, really, is about preparing those conversations and having them early, because what we're not saying is that the medication will run out for everybody. We are saying there is a risk of that. Let's plan for it in advance. We will work really hard to be in contact with pharmacies to see who's got medication stocks where, and also where we can swap onto other medications that are safe and in stock, then we will do. And that might see us through. It might not, really. Is that okay?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then, Laura, if I just hand over to you to talk a little bit about kind of medication breaks, really, and what that actually means when we do them in a planned way. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I mean, I think, Jill, the first thing we need to do is just be really open and honest with them around why this is happening and that it is out of our control, and we'll support them as much as we can. What we would normally do during a medication break is look at it as a positive, if we can spin it that way, in terms of let's see how you are coping actually without medication. We don't always get a chance to see this, so let's see what you can do and what's going really well, and really try and focus on the positives with them. So my experience of young people when they come off medication is they will be trying really, really hard to do all the things that they normally do, and that they might not always get that right. But we need to really try and focus on the positives and ignore as much of the unhelpful things that we might experience that's happening for them as possible, but also validate that they might be really struggling. I think it's really important that they hear that from us. What we might need to look at is how we ask them to do things. So they going back to really basics, breaking things down, breaking tasks down, and so that they're step by step achievable, and sort of going back and giving praise along the way as we do that, and supporting others to recognise that they're going to be really struggling at the moment and they're going to have to do the same. So giving really clear, concise instructions, giving them time to process and follow through before we put another demand on. And it might be that life just feels really overwhelming actually, and there's too many demands, and we need to break them down for them as well and work out over this period of time what's achievable and what's not, and just take some of the pressure off as well. We will be sending some information out with all of our letters as well, and we will obviously still have our behaviour helpline that people can access within the clinic if they're struggling and want some additional support too.
Brilliant. And obviously we've got our ADHD advice clinic, which you may increase if we need to. We're getting a lot of feedback. Yes. It's great that you're sending out some sort of advice on that to families. I wonder if there's something within that families could have that they could just give to a teacher in a classroom, because things don't always filter down. Just literally what you've just said, you know, about they might be struggling, break it down, all of those things. I wonder if we could work with you a little bit just to come up with a nice simple A4 sheet that families could send or print off. Would that be okay?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we've put all of that into our letter for school, but as you say, it doesn't always reach from the person that receives it across. So I'll be happy to do that with you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Right, we've got a couple of hands up, and then a couple of things in the chat. So I think Lucy was in the chat first, which says, my young person is 18 on Equisim XL, but still currently under CAMHS. Will we still be able to access medication through CAMHS if we are unable to source his Equisim?
Say that again, sorry. Oh, actually, I can look at it in the chat, can't I? Hang on. If you can private it on share care with GP, but on CAMHS, waiting list have medication managed by CAMHS. Is that also paused? Oh, good
Oh, that's a different
question.
question.
That's
Oh,
a
that's
different question, actually. We'll
question.
come
Oh,
to that one.
sorry.
The other
Oh,
one-
sorry.
No,
I'm
that's all right. That's okay. It's just
getting the order
young
wrong.
person is 18 and on Equism, but they're still currently under CAMHS, even though they're 18. Will they be able to access medication through CAMHS if they can't source the medication at the pharmacy?
So that's a young person that's due to transition out of CAMHS into adult services for ongoing prescriptions. The honest answer to that one is that we don't know at the moment. So we don't currently have knowledge about how this is starting to affect in terms of adult services. And so that's one of the things that we are kind of, on our list to start working through, really. Once we know how this impacts upon adult services, then we'll be able to have a more informed view on that, really. But that's an area that, it's not within our sphere to really understand. That transition will probably still need to take place because we don't know how long this is going on for, and we'll be working to try and be able to do that transition in a way that secures an ongoing service. But if there is, it depends on how our adult services are kind of set up to manage this.
Okay.
It's a bit of an unknown at the moment, in the honesty.
Yeah, we'll hopefully hear from adult services soon about what's going on with them. Okay, we'll just do the other question in the chat and then we'll go to hands up. If you have a private diagnosis and are on a shared car with GP but on CAMHS waiting list to have medication managed by CAMHS, is that also paused?
I think it is, because that would still class as a new initiation for our service. So yes, that would need to maintain still under the arrangement that you've currently got. Am I right in saying that, Laura?
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's get a couple of hands up. Erin, you've got your hand up.
Yes. Hi. Have the pharmacies been given permission, or whatever you want to call it, to give different doses out so they can just use what they can get stocks of? So, because I know, for example, now my son's prescription, they can only give him the tablet on the prescription, but if they had a lower dose and we could take more of, or had a higher dose and we could take half a tablet, that's still better than not getting any. But at the moment, I have to go back to the GP. If I find somewhere that's got some stock, but it's the wrong dose, I'd have to go back to the GP, get them to do a new prescription, by which point that medicine's probably gone from that pharmacy. And I know with other drugs in the past, the pharmacists have had that authority to be able to make tweaks when there's been shortages. Will that happen?
I think that depends on the medication. So with the controlled drugs, they will often come back to the prescriber just because of the nature of the type of medication it is. But that's something that we will be doing as we call people in to do these reviews, as we identify who this is affecting most at the moment. So if it's that we can prescribe in a way that keeps the young person on the medication that they're on that's working well, but as you say, is in split doses, or potentially is a slightly lower dose, but means that we can support them to stay on that medication, then that's what we'll be doing. Pharmacists might do that with the non-stimulant medications, so the ones that aren't controlled drugs, they may be happy to do that, and that is within their remit. But certainly for the controlled drugs, my understanding is I think they would still come back to ourselves.
Does
and potentially the GPs might.
Guavacine not a controlled drug, is it?
It's not,
so
no.
If I found a lower dose at a pharmacy, I might be able to convince the pharmacist to just double up the prescription. So rather than taking one tablet, we could take 2 of a lower dose tablet, and it's the same actual dose.
Possibly. I mean, I can't speak for the pharmacist, but possibly, yes. And that's certainly something that we would be looking to do within the clinic in order to support young people. So it just depends on the medication. And I think at the moment on the pharmacist and what they have been directed from their sort of governing bodies.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Angie, your hand was up.
Yeah, just a couple of things. Could we have some copies of the comms that are going out, so that we've got them in our files? So that if anybody,
on my list here,
thank you.
So I'm going to send you
me.
the comms that go to
Thank
school.
you very much. See,
and the comms that go to families.
That would be wonderful.
So that you've got
thank
it,
you.
and then it can
Thank
be
you.
over there. Yeah.
And also from a personal question, my young person is on Guanfacine, but also Medicanet. So Medicanet's not on the list, but is it going to be one of the ones that people are going to be swapped to? Should I worry about that as equally as the ones that are on the list now?
I think that's a difficulty at the moment, Angie. We don't have the answer. It is one of the ones that we're looking to swap some young people onto. And I'm not going to lie, I think that's going to be a national stance because that's what's available, and everyone will be trying to do what they can for the young people that they see.
Sure.
I think our understanding is at the moment that stock is fine, but obviously if everyone takes that same
goes
approach,
over to it,
then there will be an impact.
Okay.
But again, that's another one of those unknowns. We just don't know. It may be that we can do that and that will be enough, and the other stock comes back in and actually everything's fine. I think we're just going to have to take that week by week at the moment,
see how it goes,
and see how it goes.
Okay. And do we know why this has happened?
Yeah, there's a few reasons. So some of it's down to manufacturing. We've had some medications that have gone off patent now. So some suppliers are producing less or stopping their production, and the suppliers who would normally then pick that up haven't quite managed to do that at the same pace. Right. But also the global demand has gone up for ADHD medications. As you know, our referral rates have gone up, and that's across, nationally and worldwide. And it's not, the production's not keeping up quick enough for the demand.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. We've got another question in the chat. Our son is on non-stimulant, oh God, I'm going to get the names wrong, atomoxetine, and he can't have breaks due to the nature of tablets as they are 24/7 meds. If there's a shortage of non-stimulants, how will that work?
Another one for you, Laura.
The difficulty we've had with atomoxetine is there have been shortages throughout the past 6 months, nearly a year now, of varying doses, and we've been able to juggle that. There has been some supply of atomoxetine come back in, but not a full supply that I'm aware of. So what we will try and do is help to source those medications as much as we can. We've had conversations with pharmacists around how we can do that with our lead pharmacist. But it may be that we then have to think about swapping if we can't continue to prescribe atomoxetine if it does completely run out. What I would say is that stopping atomoxetine suddenly, if that becomes the case, shouldn't cause any side effects at all. There's no adverse reaction to stopping atomoxetine. So unlike the guanfacine that we have to wean young people off, so there's some positives in that. It's not great, but we will do what we can to help in the meantime.
Brilliant, thank you. Oh, I think there's one more just popped up. What kind of impact is this likely to have on the child, their families, mental health, etc.?
I mean, that's a really hard one to answer, because I think, first of all, we need to just remind ourselves that we may not come to the point of a young person being without medication. Secondly, I think, referring back to kind of Laura's point earlier, that actually there are young people that do really well with medication breaks. So it doesn't necessarily mean that, the worst happens, really. And I suppose that's where we're working in service, to try and see where we can create some capacity and some kind of ability for contact, like Laura's been saying, so that for those families where actually they do struggle, where the young person really does find it hard to be off medication, if it comes to that, then we think about how we can come alongside that family to really think about what does that mean? What does that mean for their mental health? What does that mean for their ADHD symptomology? What does that mean for the access to school? And what can we put in place in the short term, really, to help come alongside that? If you're worried, if you are concerned about your child's mental health, if you feel that they're dipping, if you're worried about any significant change in presentation that is linked to mental health, then we would always encourage you to call in. As Laura said, we are experiencing quite a high number of calls around this, as you might imagine, and as we would expect, and we expect to get more calls. So what I'm going to be very honest and say we don't have capacity to reply same day. So if you do need a kind of same day response, if you're that worried about your child, then I would really urge you to contact 111 in that first instance, but also do get in contact with us and we will get back to you as soon as we can.
No, that's great, thank you. And obviously families can contact us as well and see if we can help
Absolutely.
or advise. And if we get inundated, we'll let you know, and then we'll get you back to do
Yeah,
more
yeah,
of this.
of course. Yeah, do.
Okay, so just looking at some of the comments in the chat, I think you said you're sending out some stuff to schools as well, so hopefully that will explain things to them.
So Fiona, this what we send to schools we'll also send to Jill and Angie, so that you can make it available on your website or whatever, so that we can be transparent about what's gone to schools as well. And then the letters that obviously families get sent, that will come in the post throughout this week and next, depending on how quick the postman is. That can obviously, that's up to you as to who you want to share that with.
That's great, thank you. We've got a question: what support will be available from different organisations if the young person cannot cope without the meds?
Yeah, so I think that kind of goes back to what I was really saying just a moment ago around we are working really hard in service to see how we can create a bit of additional capacity to be able to come alongside those families, young people that will need it. We do have a behaviour support line. There are things such as like the drop-in clinics with no limits that we know are available, and there's also reminds, and then whatever support is available within your school. There isn't any additional support available to respond to this. There isn't the ability to suddenly scale up services and put different services on to be able to respond to this. So it is very much about us working in partnership as families and organisations and with Reminds to think about kind of how we come together for those families that really need us to come together around a child.
Okay, thank you. Right, the chat, I think, has paused for a minute. Is there anything else before we end today?
Last question, I promise.
That's all right.
Sorry, Erin.
I saw this because I noticed the guavacine thing on the Reminds page, but my son also takes aripiprazole, which I don't think is on the list. Are we okay?
No, it's not. You should be absolutely fine with that one.
Super, thank you.
Okay. Right, anyone else? I feel like I'm at an auction. Okay. Going once, going twice.
Can I just say,
right.
Jill and Angie, thank you for kind of working with us as always to help put this on. I really appreciate it. And it's just, if the questions really do keep coming in thick and fast, then, we're happy to come back and do another. That's fine.
No, that's great. I think, from parents' perspective, we really appreciate you coming out. We know how busy you are, but just taking the time to answer these questions hopefully has helped a bit. We're all kind of in this together, so hopefully we can all muddle through until
we are.
Hopefully it might sort of like stop some questions that might have come to you that we can perhaps, answer ourselves as best we can as well, so thank you for your time, ladies.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to stop recording.